Hello and welcome to 11FS Spotlight. My name is David Brear, and in this show we shine a bit of a spotlight on the best and brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try and understand what is it that gets them going, growing, and what they really think the future of the industry will look like. On today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined by Andrew Yates, who is the CEO and co-founder over at FullCircl. Thank you for joining us today, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to meet you, David. Looking forward to this conversation.
Well, fantastic. On today's show, what we're going to be doing is talking a little bit about your career, the customer lifecycle intelligence, and a bunch of other things in between in that sense as well. But maybe if we start off, congratulations on the rebrand. Could you tell us maybe a little bit more about FullCircl and how it came about as well?
So yeah, in July last year, we brought together two of the UK's most innovative fintech, regtechs, sales acceleration technology providers. We've been called many things, and what we were doing was combining the strengths of a company called Artesian that was known for some things, and a company called Judil that was known for other things. And what we wanted to do was create a powerhouse in something that we call customer lifecycle intelligence. And that is giving customers who are predominantly in the regulated space access to super connected data and insights about the companies, in fact, every business in the UK and Ireland, for example, the people inside them, and then layer in actionable insights on top of that our customers tell us are so critical. So that was the vision behind the FullCircl company.
Very good. And I guess that full circle, you always kind of look for, so what's in the name, but I guess the full circle is then that sort of 360 view of actually that customer lifecycle, right? Or am I projecting a meaning there?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't put it better myself. But just to kind of explain the context, what we're trying to do is take an outside-in perspective. We think that the customer reality is out there. It's probably not wholly wrapped up in terms of the internal systems that you operate that tell you things about your customers. And the customer intelligence is out there to allow you to connect with that company, that organization that's looking for you. So what we do is we create the connections in that information that's out there, externally derived data and insight that comes from mainstream validated and verified sources like the credit reference agencies you probably already have a relationship with and trust, but also mainstream sources like Companies House, HMRC. And then we blend that with literally millions of media sources that we source. We use various branches of data science to kind of illustrate the connections in the data and to filter out what we think is the important stuff for you that allow you to drive that meaningful conversation with the customer.
Yeah.
And we're the only guys who kind of solve the three problems that you talked about. So, the first one is help you find the right customer, those you can actually do business with, particularly if you're in the regulated sector. Help you onboard them in a way that gives them an amazing customer experience, and then help you keep them for a lifetime by literally monitoring every piece of breaking news or any development that allows you to anticipate what's happening next with that customer. So that find, onboard and keep, that's our value proposition, and that's what we mean by going full circle. A long answer to a short question.
No, well, it makes a great deal of sense, doesn't it? And in an industry that's really focused on one of those things, most organizations that really, I mean, we at 11FS have used due dil in the past as part of building a couple of banks actually in the sense of the things that we've done. But most organizations are very much just focused on onboarding. But actually, to your point around, I mean, increasingly the best organizations have deep and meaningful relationships with customers. So that full view of actually how those things work is much more critical. Let's get onto that in a second, though. I'm always interested in like, what's your why in that sense. So Andrew, tell me a little bit more about your career. Tell me a little bit more about your background. Did you dream when you were a child of doing financial services stuff, or was there a different agenda in it? Because often people's passion really sort of comes through in that sense. But what did you want to do when you were a kid?
So, as you can see, I've got a face that only a mother could love, and that's predominantly from getting bashed around playing rugby. I was a rugby player. I wanted to play rugby for England. I was well on my way. I managed to get picked for the England representative sides right the way through kind of schools and universities and stuff.
Amazing.
I also did a degree in sports science, so I really saw my future being in that kind of the health, fitness, lifestyle sector. I ended up getting my first job. I was playing rugby for a team that had a chairman that had a software business, and I really needed a job. I just graduated. I'd actually done a postgrad so I got a master's in marketing as well to try and spin out my university career a little bit longer. And he invited me to come along and work in his business as a sales guy in tech. He explained to me that we help solve business problems using technology. Customers come to us and they explain their challenges and we help solve them. And I thought, well, that sounds fantastic. And so there I was on my way. So kind of rugby was on the one side and the kind of career in software and sales was on the other. And I then had the opportunity to work for a succession of American companies, and I learned about how to engage with customers, science and art, and started my first company at the age of 34, which was a marketing automation software technology business. Literally explained to my partner at the time that we were going to need to go on the beans on toast diet, and for about 2 years it was a bit of a nail biter because it was bootstrapped, it was self-funded. We saw our savings dwindle, no income coming in, but then eventually that became a great little company, which was eventually acquired by a big American company. Fast forward to the Artesian company, which is half of the FullCircl story. So I had the great pleasure of being part of a company called Cognos 30 years ago. I worked with two key guys there that are now key people in the FullCircl company. And we were there at the birth of business intelligence as a category. Business intelligence software is software that helps you make sense of the data that's locked up inside of your applications and your various business systems. That data is typically stored in databases in rows and columns, and this technology, you could kind of plug it in and suck the data out and then manipulate it, and it would tell you things about your business you didn't know. Our mantra was make better decisions every day. So we were going around solving these business problems with technology, and kind of fast forward 30 years later, Steve Borthwick, one of the founders of Artesian, along with myself, is Steve Borthwick, not the rugby player, I might add. We were sitting drinking a glass of wine thinking about what we could do next, and we thought, why don't we reinvent business intelligence? But this time, instead of it being structured data in rows and columns that sits inside of your internal systems, let's use the internet, let's use the web and social media and externally derived sources of unstructured data in many instances to tell you things about the customers you serve that you don't know. And that was the big idea behind the Artesian company. Correspondingly, Judil had the same idea, but they wanted to come at it from the structured data by making a better job of connecting the information from Companies House and the credit reference agencies to tell you everything you needed to know about that company in terms of the way it's structured and organized and its financial worthiness. So when we brought the two companies together, we had this kind of Artesian vision and this Judil vision, which fitted together absolutely perfectly well.
Fantastic. Well,
that brings us to today.
A meeting of each of the sides of that different sides of the coin in that sense. But,
exactly.
I mean, I didn't realize you had the sporting background. Like, how much? I've got a theory. I think sports people make better business people, but I think they also make better entrepreneurs. And I think a big part of that is that I think team sports people or sports people more broadly, because even if you're an athlete, there's a whole team of people around you making that athlete successful. So it is a team sport in that sense. But I think entrepreneurs need to be able to deal with failure, and actually frequently, and sports people are way better at that than anybody in that sense. It's part of the process, it's part of learning. But I think sports people have got a deep sense of resilience. You might lose the quarter, but you won't lose the half, or you might lose the game, but you don't lose
game
the
of three
next one.
Thirds. Game of 3/3.
Yeah. So how much do you think that has sort of reinforced your mentality to keep getting up, and not just literally getting up in the morning, but setbacks are difficult when you're building a business, aren't they? It's not just the beans on toast. It's the you will lose clients, you will lose things. Things don't always work out how you want them to be, but you keep getting up, right?
Yeah, so I think discipline, resilience, mindset, they're all critical on that mindset front. Growth mindset. So always wanting to learn, always wanting to improve. It's like learning a new skill every day. You get exposed to something that you realize you don't know, or another colleague that knows something that you can learn from. So there's that aspect of it. Coping with rejection and coping with failure is tough, right? The way I label it in my mind is it's not a no, it's just a not now. Or perhaps it's just that I didn't explain it in quite the way I should have done. So the ideas keep flowing, the energy keeps coming. What I find is incredibly helpful to keep that energy level up is I try and go to the gym every morning at about 6 a.m. I find that sets me up. I find a walk halfway through the day it sets me up. Drinking plenty of water sets me up. I don't want to position myself as some super athlete. I still drink too much wine and eat the wrong things sometimes. I'm also getting married to a vegan, and that helps because she reminds me that meat's the enemy. So I've cut down on that. But that healthy lifestyle, as well as that healthy mindset, that growth mindset, combined with that resilience and that determination, which is perhaps a little more difficult to coach into somebody. I think they're the attributes of an entrepreneur.
It's fascinating. We had Professor Damien Hughes on this show a little while back now, actually. Got a great podcast, high performance podcast with Jake Humphreys, does a bunch of great stuff in that sense. And he said the thing that sports people get more than business people is it's not just physiology, it's psychology. And getting to grips with mindset, mindset, vision, and everything that goes with it, just I think comes second nature in sports because you're doing it all the time. So anyway, I think we could literally talk for another couple of hours on that.
We could. By the way, we have quite a number of either ex-professional or semi-professional athletes inside of our company.
Yeah.
For some reason, rowers seem to gravitate towards the FullCircl company, but. I think it's a great attribute to look for in people. Have they performed at the highest level consistently? Can they cope with pressure? Can they cope with the ups and downs? I think these are some of the things that we definitely look for when we're hiring.
Definitely, yeah, us too. I think it's an interesting point you made around data, sort of switching it back to the customer
to the story
lifecycle
today. Yes, absolutely,
because actually, if you look at financial services as a sector has been, traditionally incredibly bad at this. I mean, to say that data in financial services is like an Aladdin's cave. I mean, people store it for some reason, but don't really let people access it and don't really facilitate it. Use it to change the experiences. So, I mean, how important do you think this is going to be from an industry perspective? Because it is such a gigantically untapped resource.
I couldn't agree more. And I think if you were to ask some of the larger banks, are you neglecting customer lifecycle intelligence? Is it something that's a kind of blind spot for you? They would resolutely deny that accusation, or that they would defend that question in the affirmative. So the reality is that investments are being made in the best sources of information, in the best systems to try to manage that. The investments in customer relationship management systems and telephony and automation is absolutely colossal in the strive to reduce the cost to serve and improve that customer experience. So I wouldn't be critical about the effort that's going in. Where the problem is that there's not a connection between those different resources. People, human beings, are having to go to multiple places to get the answer to a complicated question. And we see that as being the opportunity. It's not just connecting the data and the information together, but it's putting a layer on top which allows you to kind of automate a business process to get an answer much quicker. And by getting an answer much quicker and providing clarity to a customer, you're going to provide that customer with a much better experience. I can go into some more detail around that as we get into the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess just sort of unpacking that customer lifecycle intelligence a little more then. And actually, I think we'll come back to this, but why is it more important now than ever? Because I mean, obviously, in the world that we live in, I think we're about 4 seconds before a recession, right? In terms of everything that's happening, the difference between people's best customer experience people, or the best onboarding people, or the best salespeople, and their worst, could be like the difference between bankruptcy for many organizations in that sense, and retaining customers that they really want to retain. So it feels like it's more critical than ever now to really get this right, in the same way as the companies in 2008 who got this right were really successful, but back then it was more of a people thing than it was a systems thing. You're kind of automating the best qualities of those best people.
Yeah, by the way, I started 2 software businesses, one in 2000 and one in 2008, right at the probably either the best time or the worst time.
Hey, timing's everything sometimes, isn't it?
It's a great question though, David. We started talking to customers about what's troubling them as leaders, particularly in those regulated industry sectors where everything is so much harder. And the themes they shared with us were pretty consistent. What they told us was, we want to grow our business, we want to deliver a great customer experience, we want to increase customer loyalty, whilst dealing with that ever increasing and evolving regulation. And we're also interested in sustainability and reducing the cost to serve. So not much then. We again, taking that kind of outside in perspective, we looked at it from kind of three ways. So putting the lens on in terms of us looking at it from our customer's perspective. These are the 3 pressures. The first one is that customers really expect more from you. They expect you to know who they are. They expect you to anticipate what they need. They don't want to have to explain what they do. They don't want to have to explain the industry sector they're in. They don't really want to explain the pressures they're under. They expect you to know that stuff, right? Because all the clues are there. Secondly, competition's increasing, typically from challengers who might be starting from a different place that you are. I talk to customers in the tier 1 financial institutions, and privately they say to me, well, it's okay for them. They don't have the heritage, they don't have the regulatory pressure that we have. They're being given an easier ride, an easier ticket. They don't have to consider all the things we consider. So that's a pressure. And then the third thing is this increasing spiral of regulation and this pressure to reduce the cost to serve. We're seeing a lot of the financial institutions we serve really rethinking that whole relationship management model. They're really trying to think of it in a different way. As I've got a pool of people who've got subject matter expertise, and I've got a pool of customers, and rather that one-to-one relationship between customer and relationship professional, I'm going to kind of break that cycle. And we see ourselves as being part of the answer in terms of the layer that sits in the middle that connects that customer need with that relationship professional subject matter expertise. And the end result should be a happier customer that gets the answer faster.
Yeah, I mean, this is all about serving customers more effectively, isn't it? It's, again, sort of distilling the best of them down to get consistency for everybody, isn't it? But I guess sticking on the cost to acquire and serve bit particularly, because I guess in an industry that is becoming more sort of complex and chaotic, as you say, the competitive landscape is getting more pressured than ever before. That cost of acquisition is one thing, but the cost of serve in a how do I say this nicely? Ever expanding, group of systems in there. That's really difficult for big organizations to face into. So, I mean, do you see that cost able to be decreased in the near term? And I guess it's probably a different answer for acquisition than it is servicing.
Yeah, I do. And it's a homework question. You'd expect me to answer the question. Yes, I do. But here's how. You already know. I'm going to speak to you as if you're a regulated industry sector, right? You already know what good looks like, and you actually correspondingly know what not good looks like. you have an appetite for risk, and you have an appetite for credit, and you have a kind of set of rules, or some rules of thumb. It might be as formal as a policy you apply to decide on the viability of a new relationship, or extending an existing relationship, maybe to offer another product or service. So you already have the answer to the question written down somewhere. What if you could codify the question and encapsulate that into a kind of computer program that you could, at the touch of a button or through some event-driven process, apply to the available data to tell you what you need to know in a matter of seconds, not minutes, not hours, not days, not weeks. So you're not kind of getting to the altar with the bride and then realizing you're going to have to kind of, abandon ship because something's wrong. That's the opportunity that we see. That's the gap that we see, that we can close. And when you look at the low-hanging fruit, there's still tons and tons and tons of opportunity to simplify the complex and automate the manual. The amount of time it takes people to do stuff that very expensive, highly qualified, capable people should not be doing is just profound. And so we see an opportunity in the short to medium term to dramatically impact that. And that's part and parcel of our story. But to give you an example, imagine if you came to me and you said, Andrew, I want you to lend me some money, and you're a business. So I would then get into a process of going through some questions around your business outlook, how you're trading, what the future trading forecast looks like. And I would probably then ask you for some financial statements. I'd then spend some time interpreting what those financial statements meant in relation to my institution's appetite to loan you money. And all of that takes a heck of a lot of time. What if you could do that at the press of a button? What if I could speed read a chart of accounts, apply the formulaic considerations that you would ordinarily make to kind of come to an outcome in a matter of seconds? Interestingly, we already enjoy that experience as consumers when we're buying things. So why couldn't we replicate that in the business world? That's the opportunity to take huge chunks of time and cost out of the equation. That's what we're doing for a number of our leading customers right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? You say that, and I completely agree with it. The digital in that sense, and everything that broadly digital means, it's not just a mobile app or a website. It's a different operating model in terms of what the expectation is in that sense. And I completely agree with you as well. I think really the big bank A versus big bank B, or fintech A versus, like, the industry standard is being set outside of the industry. It's everything else people do in their day-to-day lives. It's those experiences that people expect now in financial services, which is huge opportunity for so many in that sense, isn't it? I completely agree with you in the operating sense. How much do you think that then, I guess, comes down to? I mean, this isn't, you've got a product, and that's great, but the really to adopt and really get the benefit from your product, big organizations, it's cultural change as much as anything else.
Yeah, so the key to that is simplifying the complex, and also making it compelling through software. So look, I guess being a journalist, you might use social media on a day-to-day basis. I guess you use apps. I guess you communicate with your friends and your loved ones and your colleagues using messaging type platforms. I guess you've got a system of record you might turn to when you want an answer to a business related question. So these are things that are kind of part of, they're omnipresent. So the key to FullCircl is to really fit in with the daily operating rhythm of the person that we're trying to impact, to make it super easy to consume the goodness and the value that we're delivering. So the key to that, for example, is a great mobile experience. So if you're a FullCircl customer, 6:30 a.m. in the morning, if you're following you see the social media connotation there. If you're following a particular customer in a particular industry sector, we're going to tell you stuff at 6:30 in the morning that's going to rock your world in relation to the relationship you're trying to cultivate, maintain, or build with that customer. We're going to give you stuff that you can use to drive meaningful conversations. And you can drill down further to kind of remind yourself, how's this company structured, how they organize, what's their current financial position, what are they talking about in terms of their future strategy, what are they doing, what deals are they signing, who they partnering with, who they hiring. All of that stuff's available in a tightly connected and integrated way that takes seconds to consume, because we're leaning into these branches of data science, graph technology to connect the data, natural language processing to mine out from the unstructured data the highly contextual and relevant insights that you need. Translated for me mum, what does that mean? I'm going to tell you the stuff you need to know and the stuff that needs your attention, and I'm going to serve that to you in a way that is conducive to a time poor busy day. That's the key, and that's why we see adoption levels of our platform in the kind of upper 90 percentile. You just don't get that with tools like, I don't know, LinkedIn or some of those tools that you tend to go to when you have a specific question that you need an answer to. We're trying to build a relationship with you that's a dependency that starts first thing in the morning, connected to the device of your choosing, or integrated inside of the system that you will be using on a daily basis. That's the key.
Yeah, it's a big difference between self-service of that data and the data being served to you in intelligent ways, isn't it? It makes a massive difference for the people to use it in that sense. But
yeah, connected data, but with also potentially a call to action already embedded. The program has anticipated that this data means this, and this is what we recommend you do. That's where this is heading.
Definitely. So what's next for FullCircl then? I mean, we're this journey for financial services using data at such significant scale. I mean, there's a lot more to do in this sense.
There is. We've got a really, and you would say I'd say this, but we've got a really, really exciting vision for what happens next. So this kind of pattern of connecting things in more intelligent ways continues, but we anticipate the ability in the very short term to be able to not only even in an even greater way connect that insight and that data, but to be able to do that to anticipate the needs of a customer. I was talking to a senior guy at one of our customers, NatWest. We've been serving NatWest for over 10 years, and this gentleman, he shall remain anonymous even though he's a brilliant man, he said to me, Andrew, if you could just monitor this segment. He called it the missing middle. It's the guys who are kind of 500,000 to 10 million in revenue. They're not filing full accounts. Some of them are kind of flying under the radar. The bank gets to see if they're a bank customer. They get to see the transaction data. They get to see the trade payment data. They get to see the credit ratings. But they're really flying under the radar, and it's difficult to be able to be proactive. At the same time, you've got this pressure on cost to serve. So what I can't do anymore is have a dedicated human being kind of managing that relationship on a day-to-day basis. So he said, can you just make this simple? Can you kind of monitor, let's say, 100,000 customers for me and tell me when I need to do something? And not only that, but tell me what I need to do and direct that to the right person who can deal with that. And I said, no problem. That's where we're kind of heading next, and it's under a banner which is unified monitoring, but it's way grander than that, and it goes beyond financial services as well, David. It's really getting into that industry of customer service and being able to better anticipate what a customer needs and serve them better, faster. We have this mantra around FullCircl. We call it doing better business faster, and that's where this vision is taking us to next.
Fantastic. Well, it's super exciting. It's great to see the formation of this new company. It's great to see you guys being super successful. If we're running out of time, so I do have to wrap up. But if we ask one last question and take it back to you a little bit more, which is when it comes to careers, we always kind of look back on ours and go, look, there'd be the one thing I'd give to myself, bit of advice or bit of advice to my younger self. What would that be in your sense?
Three things. I would have advised myself to buy stock in two companies. One was Apple, the other was Microsoft. Maybe a company called Tesla when that came along. I think I would have advised myself to be a bit kinder. So I was so driven that I was at times blinkered, and I was driven, I think, at the expense of others. And that's probably one regret in my life. One should never live with regrets, but I think if I could have that time back, I might choose to have spent it slightly differently. But aside from that, I really wouldn't change a thing. I think I've been privileged to have great parents, come from a loving family. We didn't have very much. That gave me a real sense of value. And I feel blessed with the gifts that I've been given. Limited, but I've applied myself to the maximum of my ability, and so far so good. Hopefully I'm only halfway through the journey. I'm 54 years old. Hopefully I've still got another 30-40 years. Just loving every day, loving the opportunity to work with my team, and loving the opportunity to work with some of the most talented financial services professionals in the world, which are our customers. So.
Fantastic. Well, it's always nice to talk to people who've got a spring in their step when they get out of bed. If you're loving what's happening and the industry's changing so quickly, then it is a great time to be doing what we're doing. But on that note, I'm afraid we are going to have to let you go. But thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. Tell us a little bit more about where people can find more about you and about the company as well.
Well, you can contact me anytime at CEO at FullCircl.com. It's FullCircl without the E. We decided to stylize the word FullCircl, or it could have been that the domain wasn't available with an E on the end. Yeah, I'll let you decide. You can track me on Twitter at APG Yates. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find a plethora of free resources and information at FullCircl.com. We'd love to have a conversation with you. There's also an email address, let's talk at FullCircl.com. And I'd love to have a conversation if you'd like to find out more about anything we've been talking about today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Andrew. That's all the time we have for you this week, though. If you make sure you follow 11FS on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, every social media channel at this stage, you can stay up to speed with everything that we're doing across both FinTech Insider and 11FS. And particularly if you want to catch up on all the other shows like this, head over to the 11FS YouTube channel where you can catch every other episode that there was. Thank you very much for joining us this week. See you soon. Goodbye.